Did he get fouled? I thought it was a landing spot kind of foul. So I thought yes, but I can understand. I'm also, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. Also on a fadeaway, your leg naturally kicks out. That is a natural shooting motion. So I think Tatum had a case there. So I'm going to say yes, he did get fouled. Although I understand the interpretation, I think it's a misapplication of the interpretation. That's an interpretation that probably should have happened a million times on James Harden 3-pointers. It never happened, but regardless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real quickly, John, I didn't have a problem with them reversing the foul. I have more of a problem with them calling that foul in the first place. I've made my peace with it after watching the NBA for so long, but watching it in real time, that was not a foul in terms of his shot was not impacted to the point where I think he deserved. Oh no, you couldn't take that shot with that guy doing that. What, playing defense?
Yeah. I thought the landing spot thing was maybe more of an argument, but
it's more troubling to me that they don't get the end of the game right. It's like, okay, this is why we're watching.
That's all right. They'll put out the 2-minute report today and explain away all their all their foibles, and everybody will feel good about it.
Even if they get it wrong, what recourse do they have?
There's no recourse.
Last 2-minute report is ridiculous. Okay, we got things wrong. So. Congratulations. It doesn't mean you're going to change anything.
Yeah, admitting there's a problem is the first step.
To me, that's the more troubling thing. And I don't know. Technically, I was asking Wallach this morning, like, they're supposed to start the clock once somebody gains possession, right?
That's what I thought.
And he's like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, well, if that's the case, how does it get screwed up that badly? They look at it and say, no, that's it. Nah, we're done. Yeah. Game's over.
I think it starts on the tip. I'm pretty sure it starts on the tip.
Oh, then they got it right. Yeah. Okay, they got it right. Well, whatever.
Final 19 seconds.
Yeah.
I agree with Joe Mazzulla not calling the timeout because they score with 19 seconds and they have Dean Wade on the floor. They have Darius Garland on the floor. They've been attacking Darius Garland all night. So you start with those two, stay on the floor. You want guys you can attack in that moment. What should happen, why you keep those two timeouts, Tatum should have run the ball up the floor. You should take a shot within like 4 or 5 seconds. If you were watching the Celtics broadcast, Scal immediately was like, no, you got to bring the ball up faster. You got to go faster. He was saying like what Tatum did was completely botch the end of that fourth quarter, the end of that possession, because you take your shot within 4 or 5 seconds. You are shooting with about 13 seconds on the clock, 14 seconds on the clock. If you make it, you trust your defense and you go back and you defend. They'll call their timeout probably, and you go back and you defend. If you miss, you have 2 timeouts, right? So if you miss, you play the foul game. They come down. You're only down 1. If they hit 2, you call your timeout. You advance the ball. You've got about 11 seconds, 10 seconds left. You have time to run a play. You could even go for 2 still. If you score the 2, get the foul, you go down. Even if they make 2, again, you have a timeout to advance the ball. You still have 7, 8 seconds or so to run a play to get your 3. So with 2 timeouts and possession of the ball and 2 bad defenders on the floor, you have an opportunity to get 3 shots off in that situation. Tatum, okay, so he walks the ball up the floor, and Mazzulla is now kind of like a prisoner of that moment. Like, all right, is Tatum going to go? Is he going to go? You're waiting for him to like just take off, and you don't want to call a timeout to ruin what your best player is doing. And then on top of it, he says he was trying to call a timeout with 4.5 seconds left, and the refs didn't see it. So that's on top of everything that happened. So I agree. When you're down 1, that's the play. And Tatum has to learn that that's the play and not go into, okay, time for me to win the game. It's time for you to control the game. And that's what an MVP does, controls the game. And I think that's, if there's a big lesson to be learned, Tatum has to learn that end game math so he can be the type of player, that MVP level player that he wants to be.
So now the big game in Denver tomorrow night, and I think it's a big game. Is it really, or am I making too much of this?
Look, I always it's a big game for us, right? We want to see things. Is it a big game for them? If they lose, does it mean anything? It means something if they throw everything at the Nuggets and empty the playbook and still can't win. But they're not going to do that, right? So whatever we see happen on Thursday night, maybe the Celtics do want to throw everything at the Nuggets and they'll win, and that'd be great. But if they do that, and in June, Michael Malone sitting there with a championship hat on and saying, "Yeah, I remember that March game. They went to blah blah blah, and we were ready for that, and that's why we won Game 7." Like, you don't want that situation either. So it's tough for me to really get into this is a massive game type of thing, because this isn't what the goal is, and they shouldn't empty the playbook, and they shouldn't be going so all out that it ruins their chances down the road, right? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to tip your hand.
Chess.
So it is. So, but I'm not gonna, like, you do also want to play a little bit of a mental game. You do, from a player perspective, you do want to be like, hey, you know what? We owe these guys something. Like, there's definitely some of that involved as well. So I'm not going to say it's a nothing game either. It's a big game. It definitely means more to everybody, but not so much so that if they lose, it's like the harbinger of doom. If they, it's a big game with no real implications, if that makes sense.
You just described the entire NBA regular season. This seems counterintuitive to a beat writer for the Celtics, John.
All right.
I know.
I know.
I got to learn how to play that.
It sounds like you're setting yourself up and everyone else up for a loss in Denver, is what it sounds like.
No, I mean, look, because Denver's good, right? Like, they are a really good team, and good teams beat each other, and either scenarios, like, people really get worked up about, oh, you gotta beat these great teams, and you can't lose to the bad teams, you can't lose to the good teams. Who are you supposed to lose to? I mean, it's you don't.
So does it 82-0, John? I mean, come on.
Does it mean anything that they? I should have started with this before I got your thoughts on what could happen against Denver. What does it mean that they put the beat down that they put on Golden State on Sunday?
I mean, again,
does it mean anything?
I think it
does. Does it mean anything in the long run?
Yeah.
No, you beat it. You beat a team that was playing 3 games in 4 nights, and they could never get. You didn't get their best.
No, there was a mental hurdle there. They had struggled with Golden State the last year and a half. I think putting a beat down does matter.
There is a catharsis to that, right? It's cleansing in a way for these guys. So yeah, it does matter in some regards. Again, like, it's more complicated than, just yes, it matters. No, it doesn't. Because in some senses, yes, like Jaylen Brown, like, that mattered a lot for Jaylen Brown, because they had played like these mind games and blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of responded to it and kind of sent a message. There's one message that was sent that night, is that Jaylen Brown might be better when it comes to the mind games now. So that's important. But, it's not a situation like, when I say it doesn't matter, you're not facing these teams in this situation like you would in the playoffs. And so, because that scenario is different, because the game planning is different, because the rest is different, you're not going to get that same type of scenario where the Warriors were on 3 games in 4 nights, and you hear Draymond Green saying, we had a free swing at these guys, so we took a wild one. Like, that's not going to be, you don't have free swings in the playoffs. So yeah, it means something mentally to some of these guys, but also in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to coaching these guys, it doesn't mean a lot. It means more in the playoffs to have that planning and have that proper mental state, which they didn't have against Cleveland. Like, that's the lesson in the Cleveland game is, hey, when you don't play like you've been playing and you let up, teams in the NBA are good enough to embarrass you. And that was an embarrassing fourth quarter. That's the lesson. That's the takeaway. But it's not the same takeaway as you're going to get in the playoffs, because the playoffs is about game planning and preparation and all of that stuff.